Did anyone get a chance to listen to Lakoff at all? I don't expect people really have a lot of
Oh,
time.
Yes, I did.
Oh,
actually,
great.
I did not have a chance to watch or read anything, so I was hoping that you could do a quick review at the beginning.
Yes,
that would be great.
I prepared a little PowerPoint, maybe boring, but at least we can get to the quick. I tried to simplify everything. Does anyone have any thoughts about it? Duncan, you read it, and so we usually start at about 7:10, so we're still waiting.
Right.
Daughters here. So there's a bunch of issues. Just think of what's close to your heart, and we'll try to frame or reframe the messages. And I know Sue had mentioned, quite often, I think, in several of our encounters, that we need to learn how to portray our messages. Is that not right, Sue?
Yes, absolutely. We just don't know. And I've just read this. I read the article by George Lakoff. I haven't quite finished it. One more page to go, but
it's long. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with a lot of what he says in it.
Yeah.
And, we need to educate the leaders.
Yes, yes. And so anyway, there's this metaphor project that's been running, since 2004, maybe earlier, when George Lakoff wrote his book on moral framing. So they've been working on this for a while, but the Republicans or the conservatives have been at it for decades.
Yes.
For 3 decades. So
you mean creating their own framing? They do an excellent job of that.
Yes, they do. And they have all these institutions behind them. They have funded intellectuals.
Yes.
They've grabbed young kids from the university. They've funded them and supported them, whereas the left wing has not taken this sort of marketing of the brain very seriously. I think Lewis probably knows about it, being a journalist and a political scientist, right, Lewis?
I agree. I just came into the conversation.
Well, I read it. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
No, I was just going to say, you have a point. The left doesn't do enough to incorporate young people into it and to educate young people, whereas the right is very, what they do is indoctrination, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They accuse the Democrats of doing that, indoctrinating the students in universities. But I'm wondering if the right has more money to invest.
Of course.
They do, yeah.
So that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
But you don't want to use the right's methods for the left, because the left really should be it's more about freedom and thinking your own thoughts, and the Socratic method of discussion and probing the truth and so forth. That's really part of the liberal education that you get in college.
Yes.
And these people, these right-wing people, they don't like that because they don't like the liberal education because it makes them think too much and they can't be doctrinaire.
Right.
And that Kathleen Stewart, was that the last name?
Yes.
The one that wrote the Power Worshippers. I bought that book and read the book after the session. That was a really good pick. And thanks a lot for that. And that was quite an eye opener. I knew they were doing these things, but she had this in about 12 chapters or so. All the things they're trying to do, they're trying to get rid of the public schools because they don't want to have things taught that are they don't want science and critical thinking taught, and the means that they're doing it, and they're trying to hijack the money for education and make that into their own little private cottage industry. Not so small in some of these places. These things that, and that was quite a thing. Thanks a lot for that. And
Yeah.
that really binds up with this too. I mean,
Yes.
you can't, I mean, if you're arguing by repetition, which is what they're doing, and arguing by who can shout the loudest or get the biggest assembly of people and or have the strongest public ritual, if that's your argument, I mean, that's not really the argument for the 21st century. That's what got us to where we're at, maybe through the last few centuries, but we don't need that now, and we need
Right.
education and open discussion.
Exactly. So I thought we'd like go ahead, but were you saying something, Christine?
Oh, no, I mean, just that I think that the task that you've given us is so difficult. I don't know if it would be easier for someone who's more middle of the road. I don't know who would be best at it, but I feel like for me personally, my progressive education is so lengthy and so solid and so much critical theory, social sciences, all of it, that it's all so logical to me. It's hard for me to even conceive. So I don't know who would be better suited. Maybe someone middle of the road, maybe somebody, I don't know. I just feel like for me, it's really difficult to even
Yes.
wrap my head around it.
I agree with you. I feel I'm in the same spot as you. Does anyone else have something else to say before I have this little short PowerPoint prepared to sort of lay the ground for today's work? I'm hoping that we'll spend like half an hour in a breakout room actually crafting some kind of message based on any one of the prompts that you want to pick that's close to your heart. And then we'd come back and report back on what we found. So it would really more like be rolling up our sleeves and working with somebody on breakout room and to create a message. Sue, you want to say something beforehand?
Yeah, yes, I think one of the poignant things that I found in the article was that, you know, we think of Republicans as not being very bright or not thinking, and in actual fact, they're doing an awful lot of thinking. And what they do is they have disagreements amongst themselves, but they manage to like horse trade. Okay, you'll get this, you won't get that, but let's get on board. So they all manage to focus on their framework, and you know, you give something up, but you get something.
Yes.
I think the Democrats want everything.
Yes, and they're so split. And Lakoff says we need to sort of get, the progressives need to have that long-term view. So we get together and horse trade, as Sue said, as Lakoff says. So, but I thought we'd do a more simple exercise. Thanks to my two sons who are here. Thanks for coming. Amilcar and Taher.
Bye.
And so they helped me to sort of simplify the whole exercise. So bear with me. We might have some technical glitches as I try to share my screen. I think it's like a 5-minute video PowerPoint. I know it's kind of professorial, but it's just easier for me to do it like that.
Oh,
bear
good.
with me. Need to put it back, right?
Good point.
George Lakoff says that progressives have not taken heed of the research findings of cognitive scientists. The research says that people operate with mental frames that have been built into their brains over their lifetime. If they hear anything that does not stick to those familiar frames, they will likely reject it. Hence, simply throwing facts at people without making reference to their moral frames will simply not convince them. So Lakoff went ahead and tried to find what, in fact, is the operative frame underlying American values, and he came up with one that worked for him to understand the various ideas that went into the right wing and to the left wing. He came up with America as a family. However, the conservatives and the progressives have opposing frames for that America as a family frame. The conservatives' moral frame is the nuclear family with a strict father. The progressives' moral frame is the caring, nurturing family constituted of any gender and ethnic formation. The conservatives are known as the Reds and the progressives as the Blues. But those who are not diehard blues or reds are likely to be what Lakoff calls biconceptual, with, for example, a disciplinarian frame operational at work and a nurturing frame operational at home. So the same person may think of a strict boss metaphor in his factory, but when he comes home, he might actually be a nurturing father. So people with these biconceptual frames are called the purples, i.e., when you combine the red and the blue. So what we're trying to do in this exercise and this game is trying to appeal to the purples by crafting conversation starters or prompts that will stimulate their nurturing frame and appeal to their caring side. Keeping in mind that we're trying to use the nurturing, caring family frame at all times, here are some metaphors that are part of American culture. These have been identified by the folks that work for the Metaphor Project. You can Google that and find it. These metaphors, they advise, should be incorporated into the message you craft in order to appeal to the purples. The first metaphor is the American dream. We're optimistic, we're pioneering, we're resourceful, we invent new ways to solve problems, and there you see the picture of Paul Bunyan. The second metaphor they suggest using is the American nation, of course the Statue of Liberty being the icon of that. We are a beacon of hope for the world. We offer political freedom, equal opportunity, liberty and justice for all. Another metaphor that's advised that we use is free to succeed. If you have talent, personal virtue, and if you work hard, you will be rewarded by our society. And we see a picture of LeBron James, who is the epitome in the sports world of an MVP, a most valued player, because he gets his team, his community together to win NBA finals. Another metaphor is the car culture metaphor. We're on a roll. We're always in motion. We're seeking better frontiers. We seek to move on up. Another metaphor that's suggested we use is the small town security metaphor, where our communities are classless. There's no rich or poor. They're clean, they're safe, they're moral, they're friendly places, and everybody plays by the rules. Finally, the man to Superman metaphor. Here we see hospital workers, frontline workers, actually being bowed to by the superheroes because they are even more superheroes than the superheroes themselves. So any heroes that rescue people, cities, countries in the world, Americans definitely respect and revere them. I'm going to read out an example of a reframing. The Reds call this tax relief, and what the Blues attempt to do is reframe tax relief into something called tax as investment in the American people and an infrastructure for the future so that liberty and freedom can be enjoyed by all to come. So one of George Lakoff's readers asks him, isn't tax relief the natural way to talk about taxes? I'm a progressive, but I have to admit they do seem burdensome sometimes. Nobody likes to pay taxes. However, the argument Lakoff makes is homework in school is burdensome too, but you have to do it if you're going to learn anything. Exercise is burdensome, but you have to do it if you're going to be in good physical shape. Taxes are necessary. We are going to make wise investments in our national infrastructure that will pay off for all of us years and years in the future. That includes investment in things like education and healthcare for those who can't afford it, Education and healthcare are investments in people. They're wise investments because they give us an educated citizenry, an educated workforce, and a healthy and efficient workforce. Those are the practical reasons for taxes. Other reasons for taxes are public services like police and fire, disaster relief, and roads, and so on. Those are the practical reasons for taxes, but there are moral reasons as well. Education and health are important factors in fulfillment in life, and this country is about fulfillment in life. There is a reason why the Declaration of Independence talks about the pursuit of happiness and links it to liberty. The reason is that they go together. Without liberty, there can be no fulfillment in life. Thus, there are practical reasons why it makes sense to understand taxation as an investment. And there are moral reasons to understand taxation as paying our dues in a country where you can pursue happiness because there is liberty and freedom. So just a cautionary note, the radical right tax cuts are not really about tax cuts. They're about getting rid of all social programs and regulations of business. Vouchers and school testing are not ultimately about vouchers and school testing. They are about conservative control of the content of education. That's a footnote that George Lakoff puts in reference most recently to Betsy DeVos and her efforts to promote private education, defunding public education and funding private education. Here are some issues. Choose the one or ones that are closest to your heart. Make a prompt of at least one sentence or more if you want that you can pitch to purple Americans, those who have two different family models in their mind, two different family frames in their mind. So you may be actually able to reach them through the nurturing family framework. Basically, you are appealing to America as a nurturing, caring family frame. Use at least one of the 6 metaphors to craft your prompt.